Hi, welcome to Storm the Field, and the regular season is just about over. We got conference championships, and that's it. And the STF tour is going on the road. We're going to the Big 12 championship game. College game day is going to be there. I'm going to be at college game day. Can't be more excited. Rob, are you
Are
going
they
to be?
really going to be there?
Yep.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I'm excited. I might show up at like 7. You there, Rob?
Yeah.
Sorry, guys. I'm a little zoned out today. So, we're going to talk a little bit about 3 games. We're not going to go super in depth. I think we're kind of short on time, but then we're going to get into our updated top 12. So, the first game I want to talk about here is the Michigan Ohio State game. Rob, do you got anything to say for yourself on this one?
Well, if I were an Ohio State alumni, I'd be eating crow right now. But I picked Ohio State to win. It being at home, I thought they had a tougher record. They did have closer games than Michigan, but man, Michigan, they are the team in the Big Ten without a doubt.
And think
Going
about
on the
this.
road, beating Ohio State, that, in my opinion, they can lose the Big Ten championship and still have a place in the college football playoffs.
Well, think about this.
They can't lose like Ohio State lost,
No, you
and
can't. Well, here's the crazy thing is they're probably going to lose their quarterback and some of those receivers, and they always have guys come in here and like replace, but you're essentially starting over again next year.
next year. You're not talking about for the bowl, the championship game or the
CJ Stroud
playoffs.
might not play again as a Buckeye because he'll probably sit
Are,
out the
are,
bowl game if he's. That's
are,
just the trend.
are you saying the championship game? Who are you talking about?
I'm talking about
McCarthy?
Ohio State. CJ Stroud is probably not going to play in their
Oh,
bowl game.
Ohio State. Okay, I thought you were talking about Michigan.
No, no. Ohio State, I mean, it's going to be back to the drawing board again because they're losing a lot, and they're
I don't
going on
know.
the
The
road to
thing about
Michigan next year.
CJ Stroud, I could see him wanting to play in the bowl game just so the last taste in everybody's mouth is not sour. You know.
Yeah, I just think it's wild. Those do you remember what Jim Harbaugh said last year about Ryan Day?
Something about third base
Yeah,
and
he said
thinking
some
you hit
people
a
were
home
born
run or
he
hitting a
said
triple.
yeah, he said some people were born on third base and think they hit a triple. He was pretty much
Yeah,
saying that you were riding the coattails of what Urban Meyer did, and honestly,
yeah, yeah.
you can't really deny him. I mean, how many teams did Ohio State play that were ranked this year?
Penn State,
Mm-hmm.
Michigan.
Notre
I guess
Dame.
at the time Notre Dame, who actually turned out to be a decent team.
Notre Dame.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're more in the probably 15 range is what I would put them. They've had such an
yeah.
up and down year, and I'm sure we'll talk about them later on this year. But Ohio State, I mean, Notre Dame was not a top 5 team when Ohio State played them, and you know that from them losing to Marshall the next week.
Yeah.
Then Penn State, it's a good win. That's probably really their best win all year. Did
Yeah.
come on the road and it did stay close until late, but they outscored them pretty much the whole fourth quarter. But I mean, you can't really. It's not hard for you to get up for some of these games. Some of these are easy-ish wins, and so 10 wins is kind of your floor at Ohio State right now. Maybe 9-3. So how good of a job is he really doing? Because that's my question. You really have one game that you have to win all year.
Yeah. And that's the truth. I mean, it almost doesn't matter who you really play from the East.
Yeah.
I mean, pick two teams. I mean, it doesn't matter. You know, right now I think SEC is the only conference that, well, ACC, it,
Oh,
it can matter there. But, yeah, I mean, honestly, you just got to beat the other six teams in your division, and you're going to go to the Big Ten championship. And with the way they bundle 3 or 4 non-conference games into it, if you win your division, you're 10-0. And I mean, honestly, until the foreseeable future, when the Big Ten gets better, and that may include Penn State. I mean, Penn State is a really good team. They lost 2 pretty close games to Ohio State and Michigan.
Michigan is not close.
But all you got to do, if you're Ohio State, is beat Michigan, and unless you had a collapse somewhere along the way, you're going to be 12-0. And if you're Michigan, likewise, if you don't stumble, if you do what you're supposed to, you're going to be 12-0.
Yeah.
I mean, tell me a non-conference game that's going to beat them. Tell me, Penn State is a possibility, but tell me anyone from the East that's going to beat them. I mean,
hey, maybe Nebraska or Wisconsin coming up. They got 2 really, really good hires.
Well, yeah, but
not this year, not next year.
Yeah, in Wisconsin, I mean, it's still. Are they going to be as good as they were in the early 2010s, or
I don't know. I think they're going to be approaching 8-9 wins next year.
They could.
And we scoff at that, but the Big 12 West participant in the championship is like an 8-win team, so they could definitely be in the running for the conference championship next year.
Yeah,
especially with the transfer portal and everything. But let's move on to the real SC. South Carolina takes down another playoff contender in 2 consecutive weeks.
Yeah, they could be trouble next year if they build on this success. But yeah, that was a non-conference game. But man, that there were a couple of there were 2 teams that had a really good shot of the playoffs this year that lost it last week, and probably a third.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, Spencer Rattler, he looked really good. I think he had 266 in the air. But what a disappointment for Clemson. Like, another year where this year they're going to their conference championship at the least, but it's kind of a year where the entire Atlantic division is a little down. Like, I think they're the only 10-win team there.
Well, Clemson's kind of like Ohio State and Michigan. There's no one really to compete with them in the ACC. Unfortunately for them, they picked 2 non-conference. Well, South Carolina is a year in, year out, but it's a non-conference game, and they were, what were they, 1-2 or 2-2 in non-conference games?
I'm really not sure because I know they started off with an early loss.
They only lost to Notre Dame in South Carolina.
Oh, you're talking about Clemson. I was thinking.
Yeah, they're undefeated in conference.
Yeah, I was thinking you were talking about South Carolina, and I was like, I think they won almost all their non-con.
I mean that's the thing about at least Clemson this year. If you're a powerhouse in the SEC, if you have a loss, it's probably coming from within the SEC. For Clemson, that's embarrassing to the league that you would lose 2 non-conference games and be undefeated in conference.
Yeah.
I mean, what does that tell you about your conference?
Wake Forest ended up 7-5.
Yeah.
Shout out to that hater who questioned my thought process with that, and I was dead on the money. That's all I gotta say. Speaking of dead on the money, last week I told y'all LSU is not that team. I can't remember if I said it on the show or if I just said it talking in general, but I said I thought LSU had a really big chance of losing this week. You might have said it and I agreed with you, or what happened, or whatever it was. Congratulations, Rob. I know it's been a rough year for the Aggie faithful, but you got to end it off a good way.
We're starting next year with a winning streak.
That's true. Hey, and you're not going to lose a bowl game this year.
No. Yeah.
You know this
We're going to be we're gonna be better than half the teams in the nation next year with a winning streak starting the season.
Hey, Rob, I think that this is the second straight year where A&M does not play in a bowl game.
Well, yeah, last year we were eligible, but COVID
Yeah, I
slash
think I
do we
think they
really
it
want
got
to
canceled
play?
because people were sick or something. But that's you haven't seen anyone. You haven't seen them win since the North Carolina game. What was that? The Cotton Bowl.
It was a COVID year.
Yeah, I know.
It's when A&M should have played in the playoffs.
Yeah, fair. All right.
I think it was. I think it was the Cotton. No, it was the Orange Bowl.
It was one of them. Yeah, probably Orange Bowl.
Because I remember Jimbo had a big old bucket of oranges in front of him. Yeah.
Hey, I know I didn't write this down for us, but how about that Florida State Florida game? Rob, I know that Florida ended up losing that game, but I didn't really expect it to even be competitive. So I honestly think you were on the right side of that.
Yeah.
That was a crazy game. That not considering stakes and stuff like that, that was one of the more entertaining games all week.
Yeah, it was. It was a good game.
It was a really good game. All right, well, do we have anything else, or do we want to go into the top 12?
I think so.
All right. Well,
shake it.
I ended up winning this week, and so I'm going first because there's no one else to go. All right, number 1, Georgia. Number 2.
Hold on, let me write this down. Georgia.
Number 2, Michigan. Number 3, TCU. Number 4, USC. Number 5, I had a struggle at 5.
I did too.
Because I want to be clear on my principles. And so right now I have Ohio State. But I would definitely put either my 6 or my 7 in above them. So if you want me to slide everyone up, or either not, I'll give you the order for 5, 6, and 7. I got Ohio State at 5, Tennessee at 6, Bama at 7, and I wouldn't put Ohio State ahead of just one of them. So if I had to slide them behind, then I would drop them to 7 probably, because that was a really bad loss.
Yeah.
And I mean, looking at those 3 teams, they have comparable resumes. I think Bama has the strongest losses, but Tennessee won the head-to-head, and so kind of talking on that still, I think just Tennessee has deserved to be over Bama for that reason, and only that reason. Because if they played again tomorrow, I'd put Bama in over them. 8, I got Penn State. 9, I kind of was confused on 9 and 10. I was waffling. But I'm going to take Washington over Clemson. So I'll take Washington at 9, Clemson at 10. Just because Washington's playing for their championship and they're on a win streak. They're not. Clemson had another loss this week. So one's trending up, one's kind of trending down for me.
Yeah.
At 11, I got Utah. And number 12, Florida State.
You know what? 10 through 12, we match.
So you kicked LSU all the way out also?
Oh, LSU's gone. 3 losses and 2 of them being horrendous.
Well, Florida State's 3 losses, but they have a head-to-head win over them.
Yeah, there's 3 losses. I mean, that was enough, but 2 of them were blowouts. I mean, the A&M one wasn't super blowout.
Oh,
but
it was out of control for him, though.
Yeah, that
Jimbo could have ran up the score if he wanted to.
Yeah. So I've got Georgia. We're different in the middle.
All right.
I got Georgia, Michigan, TCU, USC.
Mm-hmm.
I've actually got a 2-loss team in here, as next, and you're probably thinking Tennessee or Alabama, but I'm going to
Penn
shock
State.
you. Penn State. Um, then I've got Alabama, and I know you disagree, but their two losses
I agree.
are probably better than Penn State's losses. And I'm just looking at each team individually.
Yeah.
I've got Washington. They've got two losses, but they're playing good, and they're also playing for a championship. They're the first team outside the top four that's playing for a championship.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then I've got to drop. I got to put Ohio State in somewhere. They have one loss, but it was such a bad loss. I can't put them at number 5 like the AP and like they're probably going to do tomorrow night when the committee comes out with their rankings. But and then I've got Tennessee behind Ohio State at 9. And then and the reason I've got them, yeah, they beat Alabama straight up, but they lost to South Carolina and they lost to Georgia, and the Georgia loss was not pretty. And the South Carolina, I mean, yeah, they're a good team, but I mean, if you're going to be a top-tier team, you need to beat them on the road, and they lost.
I agree.
You know?
If Bama's loss had been a 3-point loss to anyone other than Tennessee,
yeah.
If there was just no head-to-head, then question, blind resume, I would put Bama over them. But just based off principles, it would feel wrong to me. But I'm not gonna argue. Honestly, the way the playoff ranking system works, Bama should be 5. They have because if it makes any sense, I think they stack up better head-to-head resume.
Are you sure that
they're not going to?
If you look at best records, and wouldn't you have to put Ohio State 5?
They would. I'm just saying, based off of their logic and the way they value things, I in like a blind resume test, if you said, "Hey, one team lost by like 25 or 23 or whatever it was," and one team, and that's really one of the only big games you played all year. Bama's had one of the hardest strength of schedules all year, and they've lost by a combined 4 points.
Yeah, and so I mean, here's my reasoning. Alabama lost a 3-point game to Tennessee on the road.
Yeah.
They lost home to LSU.
They were on the road at LSU.
Oh, on the road. Okay, who is going to represent the West?
Yeah.
SEC West. And I know you can't put everything blinders on, but Tennessee lost on the road to an inferior South Carolina team and then got demolished by Georgia.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, I think both of those losses were on the road, but that loss to Georgia to me does not overcompensate for beating Alabama at home by 3, because in reality, if nothing changed except the venue, then Tennessee and Alabama played to a tie, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And by the same token, Alabama would have beat LSU on a neutral site.
Rob, if USC drops a game this week,
all hell's breaking loose.
I know, but if they lose in this conference championship to Utah, then hey, I might get my Squatch and soap gripper from you, because I think Bama would maybe sneak in at 4.
I think right now Alabama's got 2 chances of making the playoffs. Now, so does Ohio State. I think the committee's going to put them 5 and 6, probably Ohio State and then Alabama.
Yeah. But whoever is at 6 this week has no chance.
No, I would disagree. I would say that if TCU loses, I think they're out, because they're going to put a stagnant Ohio State or Alabama in, and the same goes for USC.
I'm not sure if TCU
USC, because it will be their second loss. They're going to have to really justify a 1-loss TCU not making it, especially if it's a close loss. But if USC loses, Ohio State or Alabama goes in, and I think they'll try and find a way that for the other one to make it if TCU loses, which would give us Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State, and Alabama.
And that means my prediction in the preseason would have Oh no, Josh Pate's preseason prediction would have been right.
Was that his top four?
Yeah, he said that 2 Big Ten, 2 SEC were going to make it this year.
Oh, okay.
That'd be funny.
I could see it happening, but you could argue with Alabama and it being Tennessee instead, or it being Penn State. But I don't see how you can really keep a one-loss TCU out.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think TCU should should not make it. They had a statement win this last week because I know the opponent they played was not as good as Kansas State or Texas or, I mean, it's one of if not the worst team in the entire conference. But they did the one thing they have not done since like October, and it's win by multiple.
Well, and not only that, but you know, because Iowa State's defense is so good, if Iowa State had done to TCU what they've done normally, TCU would have scored half the points.
Rob, I'm not gonna lie to you, and I think I might be coming out on a limb here, but this is the one game all year where I feel like TCU actually looked like a top 4 team.
Yeah. Now let me ask you this: in TCU's defense, or you're a committee member, how do you justify this? TCU's 11-1, losing bad. No, 12-1, losing bad in the championship game. How do you justify them being jumped by Ohio State, who they will say Ohio State just had that one bad loss? You could say, well, so did TCU. This assumes TCU loses bad to Kansas State. But they did it in the championship game and not in a regular season game. They played for their championship.
Yeah, I agree. You know? I wouldn't even know what the justification would be to put in Ohio State over them.
Now how do you justify Alabama going in over TCU? To me, you would have to say the only way Alabama could get in is if you put Ohio State in first, because there's no way Alabama should be jumping Ohio State.
I disagree with that to a point. I would, because you can look at it 2 different ways. You can look at it as singular losses or by how many points you lost. Ohio State, it would have taken Bama if they lost 6 games in the way.
Yeah.
They would have had to lose like every single game by about 1 to 3 points in order to have the same margin of loss that Ohio State had in that one game.
Well, I mean, there were at least 3 other games that Alabama could have lost late, and that was Texas, A&M, and I know there was a third where they just barely won. But if they had lost all those games, it still would have been by less than half of what Ohio State lost to Michigan.
Yeah, I think it's hard to justify, like, hey, this one loss compared to these 2 losses, like, because they don't have equal strength of schedules. Ohio State had a very, very, very poor strength of schedule. Yeah. The only way they were getting in this year, in my opinion, was with a staple win over over Michigan.
Okay. Now let me ask you this: you have to put in a second Big Ten team. I could justify Penn State over Ohio State. Ohio State beat Penn State at home, did they not?
Ohio State beat Penn State on the road.
Oh, on the road.
Penn State was at home.
But wouldn't you say that Penn State losses to Michigan and Ohio State is more respectable than the big loss Ohio State had to Michigan?
Well, I think Penn State had maybe even a worse loss to Michigan than Ohio State did. Rob, they got rolled. Look at that. They got rolled. I'm looking at it right now. They lost 17-41. They got rolled.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was not close. They scored a field goal in the second half.
Well, never mind.
Yeah, I think that's really what would take them out of the road more than the fact that they're a two-loss team is the fact that they
Yeah, so
got
they lost
steamrolled.
basically as bad to Michigan as Ohio State did, and Ohio State beat them by almost 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, I think a good mark of a really good team is when you win big, and when you lose close.
Yeah,
And so on a way lower scale, I'm not talking about playoff or anything even close to that, but look at Texas this year. When they won, a lot of their wins were by multiple scores, and they didn't lose by more than 7 this year. And so that shows a team like, hey, you were closer to 10-2 than you were to 6-6.
yeah,
And so it's funny. A one a loss by 1 point and a loss by 25 points are both a loss, but
yeah.
but I would argue that a loss by one or a win by one are so much more comparable. Does that make any sense?
A&M lost 5 games by 1 score.
And you know, hear the funny part?
And,
They
and you
beat
know, if they had,
three top 15 teams.
they could have been 10-2 and played as bad as they did
And the funny thing is they won three top 15 games, which is the most this entire
in the
millennium
nation.
in the 2000s that they've won three top 15 games,
Yeah, yeah.
and they're
For
missing a bowl game.
a school record.
Yeah, in the 2000s.
Yeah, you tell me that at the beginning of the year, and I would have thought, yeah, they would be playing for the national championship this year.
If I told you that you beat three top 15 teams and you played Bama on the road to 4 points, then you'd probably say, hey, we might
Yeah.
be getting close to the playoff. Hey, I'm going to make a prediction now. I know we're kind of getting off topic, but just to kind of, before we wrap stuff up, if there's a 12-team playoff next year, which I don't think there will be, Texas and Texas A&M should both make it.
Next year?
Yeah. And I'm not saying that they will, and I'm not saying A&M's actually going to come back and pull that off, but you should.
I could see that happening.
I think the biggest worry is that Jimbo digs his feet in on the offense and doesn't. And that's something that Josh Pate
did
brought up.
you hear the offensive coordinator was fired today?
There was an offensive coordinator?
It was today or yesterday.
I didn't know they had one. I honestly thought it was just Jimbo.
Let me look it up. I think he was a scapegoat.
Yeah, maybe so. I think he just needs to simplify the philosophy because it looked, and you can see, hey, this offense works when they start to get it, but it shouldn't take 13 weeks to get. Like, this is not a developmental program. This is a program where you're bringing in enough talent that you should be competitive every year. It should not be, hey, let's have a learning year when we have a new draft or a new recruiting class, because it's largely freshmen this year. It is a young team, but it should not take them an entire season to get used to the system.
He has fired offensive coordinator and tight ends coach Daryl Dickey.
I mean, I think that's a good move, but I think it honestly needs to have more to do with what Jimbo's going to change rather than staffing issues. Because
or labeling him as a scapegoat.
Well, yeah, I mean, if he brings in another offensive coordinator and tells him, "Hey, I want you to implement my offense," then I think the offense is more of a problem than it's just too complicated.
This would probably not be a promotion, but what about the offensive coordinator for the Dallas Cowboys,
Kellen Mond? I mean, he's in the running for like offensive or
like coach in the NFL.
Head coaching in the NFL. I don't think that. I think that job's a little below him. But that's the kind of offense you need to implement. It's very simplified, so where it's easy to understand, but there's enough things you can do to kind of make the defense confused. Run similar things out of different sets.
You know, I'm not gonna categorize the NFL or college being better than the other.
Uh-huh.
But Kellen Mond, he was familiar with the Cowboy offense. He wasn't going to get any playing time, so he decided to become a coach and had an opportunity in Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
He very easily could have gone into college. He's the same person. He's working with fantastic talent on the offensive side with the Cowboys. Is he like, the former Cowboy head coach who went to the redhead?
Garrett?
Who went to,
Garrett?
Yeah, I mean, could it be that all over again?
If he ever
does.
I'm really not sure. I haven't been super plugged into the NFL this year.
Well, Thursday we've got 5 games to talk about.
Yeah.
6 if you do Army Navy.
We're not talking Army Navy. Hey, so Josh Pate did not announce where the Every Given Saturday tour is going, but if he's going,
I thought you said it was. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
College Game Day you did.
So we potentially could have College Game Day, Josh Pate, and all of us there in person. One big happy family.
If Josh Pate goes there and you go to College Game Day, you ought to have a sign that says, "Hey, Josh Pate," instead of,
Yeah. Well, something I thought about, like if he, for whatever reason, did the show on the road, which I think is out of the question because he's having to cover SEC stuff in Atlanta. But I thought it would be so funny if I went to his show live and held like a College Game Day poster up.
Yeah.
That'd be funny. All right, yeah. Rob. Well, if we don't have anything else to talk about, then.
No. The only thing I've got to talk about is this, but I'm going to do it with my mouth closed.
You're frozen.
I got to eat this steak. Came from Austin. I think was originally known as Bevo.
No, you couldn't. All right, Rob. Well, I'm gonna go eat some dinner.
All right. Hopefully on Thursday when we reconvene, the other boys will be here.
Yeah, you can only hope. All right. Good talking to you.
All right.
See you next time. Bye.
Bye.